strong, to trample on the weak. She is rising to shed the eternal light entrusted to her over the world. India has always existed for humanity and not for herself, and it is for humanity and not for herself that she must be great. Therefore this was the next thing he pointed out to me. He made me realize the central truth of the Hindu religion. He turned the hearts of my jailers to me, and they spoke to the Englishman in charge of the jail. He is suffering in his confinement. Let him at least walk outside his cell for half an hour in the morning and in the evening. So it was arranged, and it was while I was walking that his strength again entered into me. I looked at the jail that secluded from him, and it was no longer by its high walls that I was imprisoned. No, it was Vasudeva who surrounded me. I walked under the branches of the tree in front of my cell, but it was not the tree. I knew it was Vasudeva. It was Sri Krishna whom I saw standing there and holding over me his shade. I looked at the bars of my cell, the very grating that did duty for a door, and again I saw Vasudeva. It was Narayana who was guarding and standing sentry over me. Or I lay on the coarse blankets that were given me for a couch and felt the arms of Sri Krishna around me, the arms of my friend and lover. This was the first use of the deeper vision he gave me. I looked at the prisoners in the jail, the thieves, the murderers, the swindlers, and as I looked at them I saw Vasudeva. It was Narayana whom I found in these darkened souls and misused bodies. Amongst these thieves and dacoits there were many who put me to shame by their sympathy, their kindness, the humanity triumphant over such adverse circumstances. One I saw among them especially who seemed to me a saint, a peasant of my nation who did not know how to read and write, an alleged dacoit sentenced to 10 years rigorous imprisonment, one of those whom we look down upon in our pharisaical pride of class as Khatalak. Once more he spoke to me and said, "Behold the people among whom I have sent you to do a little of my work. This is the nature of the nation I am raising up and the reason why I raised them." When the case opened in the lower court and we were brought before the magistrate, I was followed by the same insight. He said to me, "When you were cast into jail, did not your heart fail, and did you not cry out to me, 'Where is thy protection?' Look now at the magistrate, look now at the prosecuting counsel." I looked, and it was not the magistrate whom I saw, it was Vasudeva, it was Narayana who was sitting there on the bench. I looked at the prosecuting counsel, and it was not the counsel for the prosecution that I saw. It was Sri Krishna who sat there, it was my lover and friend who sat there and smiled. "Now do you fear?" he said. "I am in all men and I overrule their actions and their words. My protection is still with you and you shall not fear. This case which is brought against you, leave it in my hands. It is not for you. It was not for the trial that I brought you here but for something else. The case itself is only a means for my work and nothing more." Afterwards, when the trial opened in the Sessions Court, I began to write many instructions for my counsel as to what was false in the evidence against me and on what points the witnesses might be cross-examined. Then something happened which I had not expected. The arrangements which had been made for my defense were suddenly changed, and another counsel stood there to defend me. He came unexpectedly, a friend of mine, but I did not know he was coming. You have all heard the name of the man who put away from him all other thoughts and abandoned all his practice, who sat up half the night day after day for months and broke his health to save me, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. When I saw him, I was satisfied, but I still thought it necessary to write instructions. Then all that was put from me and I had the message from within, "This is the man who will save you from the snares put around your feet. Put aside those papers. It is not you who will instruct him. I will instruct him." From that time I did not of myself speak a word to my counsel about the case or give a single instruction, and if ever I was asked a question, I always found that my answer did not help the case. I had left it to him and he took it entirely into his hands, with what result you know. I knew all along what he meant for me, for I heard it again and again. Always I listened to the voice within. I am guiding, therefore fear not. Turn to your own work for which I have brought you to jail, and when you come out, remember never to fear, never to hesitate. Remember that it is I who am doing this, not you nor any other. Therefore whatever clouds may come, whatever dangers and sufferings, whatever difficulties, whatever impossibilities, There is nothing impossible, nothing difficult. I am in the nation and its uprising, and I am Vasudeva, I am Narayana, and what I will, shall be, not what others will. What I choose to bring about, no human power can stay. Meanwhile he had brought me out of solitude and placed me among those who had been accused along with me. You have spoken much today of my self-sacrifice and devotion to my country. I have heard that kind of speech ever since I came out of jail, but I hear it with embarrassment, with something of pain. For I know my weakness, I am a prey to my own faults and backslidings. I was not blind to them before, and when they all rose up against me in seclusion, I felt them utterly. I knew then that I the man was a mass of weakness, a faulty and imperfect instrument, strong only when a higher strength entered into me. Then I found myself among these young men, and in many of them I discovered a mighty courage, a power of self-effacement in comparison with which I was simply nothing. I saw one or two who were not only superior to me in force and character, very many were that, but in the promise of that intellectual ability on which I prided myself. He said to me, "This is the young generation, the new and mighty nation that is arising at my command. They are greater than yourself. What have you to fear? If you stood aside or slept, the work would still be done. If you were cast aside tomorrow, here are the young men who will take up your work and do it more mightily than you have ever done. You have only got some strength from me to speak a word to this nation which will help to raise it." This was the next thing he told me. Then a thing happened suddenly, and in a moment I was hurried away to the seclusion of a solitary cell. What happened to me during that period I am not impelled to say, but only this, that day after day, he showed me his wonders and made me realize the utter truth of the Hindu religion. I had had many doubts before. I was brought up in England amongst foreign ideas and an atmosphere entirely foreign. About many things in Hinduism I had once been inclined to believe that it was all imagination, that there was much of dream in it, much that was delusion and maya. But now day after day I realized in the mind, I realized in the heart, I realized in the body the truths of the Hindu religion. They became living experiences to me, and things were open to me which no material science could explain. When I first approached him, it was not entirely in the spirit of the Bhakta, it was not entirely in the spirit of the Jnani. I came to him long ago in Baroda some years before the Swadeshi began, and I was drawn into the public field. When I approached God at that time, I hardly had a living faith in him. The agnostic was in me, the atheist was in me, the skeptic was in me, and I was not absolutely sure that there was a God at all. I did not feel his presence. Yet something drew me to the truth of the Vedas, the truth of the Gita, the truth of the Hindu religion. I felt there must be a mighty truth somewhere in this yoga, a mighty truth in this religion based on the Vedanta. So when I turned to the yoga and resolved to practice it and find out if my idea was right, I did it in this spirit and with this prayer to him: "If thou art, then thou knowest my heart. Thou knowest that I do not ask for